They pulled my grandfather out of the vehicle and dragged him away as onlookers did nothing. The men beat him so savagely that the bones in his face and head shattered. They attacked him until the blood disguised him. His swollen eye sockets and torn flesh took away his identity. Generations of hate came to bear on my grandfather until he was unrecognizable. On Monday, July 4th, my brother Larry wasn't in his bed. A mother's intuition can prove to be unnerving and discerning. Mama tried to stay calm, but in her growing restlessness, she began calling around. No one had seen him. No one had heard from him. He had vanished. Larry's body was discovered by a couple of fishermen in the Belle Isle shallows. The scream of a mother whose child has been murdered and thrown away like trash is enough to turn your blood cold. There's nothing you can compare it to. It begins in a place so deep it's difficult to reach until it surges beyond physical, mental, and emotional limits. Your heart explodes into a million pieces, and it feels as if the soul dies with it. On November 6, 1993, my mind was on my brother Keith. A spattering of commercials flew across the screen, along with primetime shows and a random news update. The report told of a body of a man found in an abandoned van on the east side. "That's Keith," I yelled, then fell to my knees crying inconsolably. Keith had been kidnapped, tortured, and murdered. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, what I was feeling. I had just spoken to him. I could hear his voice in my ears and see him sitting behind the wheel of his truck doing business on his phone. One more brother of mine dead. Someone's idol. Someone's enemy. And those right there are some excerpts from a book called Cry Like a Man, which is written by Jason Wilson. And as you can tell from those excerpts, Jason Wilson faced many challenges growing up. The types of challenges that make many men turn down the wrong path. The demonic path that destroys people and ruins their souls. But fortunately, Jason was able to break away from that path and get on another path, the righteous path. And he's helped thousands of people do the same thing. Through his books, Cry Like a Man, Battle Cry, and his most recent book, The Man the Moment Demands, Master the 10 Characteristics of the Comprehensive Man. He's an author. He's the founder and director of the Cave of Adullam Transformational Academy. He's the star of the Lawrence Fishburne produced documentary called The Cave of Adullam. And he's a lifelong martial artist. And finally, last but not least, a husband and a father and a man of faith. And it's an honor to have him with us here tonight to share his experiences and lessons learned. Jason, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, brother. Very moving introduction. Yeah. But thank you. I'm honored to be here. Long time coming.
Yeah, it was interesting as you know, when I saw you back in the day when your videos started to get really popular and I started to see you, and I started to think, you know, what's this guy's background? Where'd he come from? And I didn't, you know, I kind of made some assumptions, but I didn't explore it too much. And it wasn't until you were actually scheduled to come here. And I listened to you on Rogan, and so I heard some of the stories. But again, you know, when you talk stories, it's a little bit different than when you actually write them down and what happened. And so reading your books, getting ready for this podcast, I would say it definitely, I assumed you had been through some rough stuff. And that's kind of how you were able to get on the path that you finally got to. But it's heavy. It's heavy. And, it's funny, before we hit record, we were both talking about how, dads sometimes, I was telling you a story about my son when I was, being an idiot with my son. Who knows what little tiny infraction he did as a 6 or 7 year old kid, and who knows what kind of idiotic punishment I doled out on him or talking to I gave him. But my wife pulled me aside and she says, he's not a SEAL, right? And I looked at her and I smiled, because she was 100% right. Here I was with a 6 or 7 year old kid, literally in my mind, thinking he should be acting and behaving as a 27-year-old member of a SEAL platoon, active duty, ready for deployment. Like, in my mind, that's what it is. Like, this is attention to detail. You can't forget that kind of thing. She's like, he's 6.
What is that cartoon, Baby Boss? What is it? The little
Boss
baby. Yeah.
I haven't seen that one.
You should watch it. You'll laugh from what you just told me. Yeah.
And then, the other thing is, as I was thinking about that, you read your book, and there's going to be things that happen to you. It doesn't matter how old you are. They don't, you're going to have traumatic events happen in your life. Whether you're ready for them or not, the world's going to treat you like you're a active duty SEAL. Absolutely. Like you got all that resilience when you might not yet. So, man, awesome. I'm just glad we could finally make this work out. And yeah.
Do you ever see, I think her name was Maria. She had connected me with you 2016 when the video went viral.
Okay.
And you sent some rash guards.
Oh yeah, we sent rash guards. Yeah.
And my boys loved it. I'm gonna send you the picture. I still have it from 2016.
I think I have that picture.
Yeah, but thank you, man. I mean, that was the first time of me like reaching out to you and following you. In many days, when you have experienced such significant trauma, there are many mornings you don't want to go. Yeah. Your brain, the trauma, time travels now. You don't think that you can make it because both of your brothers didn't. And there were several videos, actually, I believe I saved in my phone of you that helped me get going a few mornings. And I just wanted to thank you for that, man.
Yeah, it really is very difficult. As I've told this, talked about this before. I wrote this book over here. It's called The Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual. And it was coming out in October of 2017. And I was getting ready to do a tour. I was going to New York, going to do the big, I forget what they call it, but it's a big press tour. And then I was going to go to a bunch of different cities and do a bunch of book signings and all that kind of stuff. And my best friend, Seth, he died in a parachute accident. And, just totally awful scenario. But at one point, like right after it happened, maybe 2 days later, I'm laying in my bed and it's around lunchtime, and this book that I had written had shown up, and there was a stack of probably 2 cases of the book. They're sitting on my desk, and I'm laying in bed, and it was just I was very, very distraught, and I normally don't feel very distraught. Normally I feel like I have a pretty good grip. And for a moment, I really felt like I didn't have a good grip on things. And I actually have a section in that book that I wrote about losing other friends. And I thought to myself, wait, you need to go read your own book. And I literally sat up, walked over, ripped the box open, pulled one of those books out, and I opened this section and I read it. And it helped me so much. It was almost as if someone else had written. It was almost as if it was, but I was that detached in that moment in time. I was that distraught, and I just felt very, like the woe is me type attitude. Why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? Why did he have to go now? Had all those feelings, and then I said, okay. And I opened up that book and I read that section, and I said, that's right. You should be so thankful that you got to know him. Yeah. You should be so thankful that you have memories of him. You should be so, and that's the attitude that I took. Wow. And you should live to honor him and remember him every day, but don't dwell in the past. Don't dwell on it.